In today's Farm Report, the U.S. Department of Agriculture engages in ag trade missions on a regular basis to help U.S. ag companies get into emerging markets. Rod Bain with the U.S. Department of Agriculture shares more.
Increased agricultural exports to Asia are one reason why the U.S. has seen record annual export totals in recent years. Take, for example, the combined export totals for two Southeast Asian markets, Malaysia and the Philippines.
We've seen over the last 5 years our trade to those countries actually double. We're looking at a market that's almost $5.5 billion.
And that is why USDA, led by Undersecretary Michael Skews, brought a delegation to those two countries recently as part of an ag trade mission.
There were 6 state departments of agriculture represented, as well as 21 U.S. companies represented on the trade mission. We took companies ranging from equipment companies to meat companies, grain companies as well.
USDA conducts trade missions to potential and growing markets on a frequent basis. But as the Undersecretary believes,
with the conversation that I had with representatives of the different companies, I think that there's a real possibility that this could be one of the most successful trade missions that we've done so far.
In terms of both sales made during the trade mission, as well as potential sales into the future. Skew says the feedback so far from companies that participated in this ag trade mission has been similar to what he has heard in other missions.
I had one company representative come up to me and say that they had been trying for a period of time to set up meetings with another company in one of these countries and had not been able to set those meetings up. And they told me that we were in fact able to set those meetings up for that company with the company that they wanted in that country. And because of that, they were able to do business. So they're going to be exporting products to this country through this company, and because of the meetings that we were able to set up.
Like other ag trade missions, USDA will conduct both immediate and long-term follow-up with the participating companies and state departments of agriculture.
We like to find out how successful the trade missions were, what we could do to improve those trade missions, what we did right, what we did wrong. Hopefully the companies will give us some good solid numbers to work with.
And this feedback will assist in planning for future ag trade missions, such as one planned for June for Panama and the Dominican Republic. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
How would you, as an analyst, describe the stock levels of U.S. corn and soybeans?
Very strong, very healthy.
Not overburdening, according to USDA's acting chief economist Rob Johansson. This after a look at Tuesday's grain stocks report showing corn stocks up 11% from a year ago, soybeans up 34%. However,
our use is up. Exports are up.
And for the December through February quarter, corn disappearance or use was about 3.5 billion bushels, the third highest for that quarter on record. Soybeans, the most disappearance for that quarter ever at about 1.2 billion bushels.
And that's primarily a function of the fact that we had such large supplies coming into the year. We had a huge harvest last year, and we had pretty good stock levels coming into the carryover stocks coming into this year. And so we did have a large supply. And it's not a surprise that we would be using a record amount as well.
A quick note on wheat. Stocks of all wheat up 6.4% from a year ago. Wheat use this past quarter down 3% from a year ago. In Washington, Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
President Obama recently created the Broadband Opportunity Council to help address broadband access. One of the co-chairs of the council is Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack. Gary Crawford with the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more.
If it were not for the internet and broadband, chances are you would not be hearing this report on this station because that's how our reports are delivered these days. And almost from the first day in office, President Obama has been saying over and over again,
just as the interstate highways knitted the country together 50 years ago, we've also got to do some new things to meet the challenges of the 21st century. We need to expand the reach of broadband, high-speed internet.
And just a few days ago, the president took another step in that direction, signing a memorandum
establishing a new Broadband Opportunity Council.
Jeff Zients directs the White House National Economic Council, and he told reporters,
the council will drive an administration-wide effort to promote more broadband investment and adoption.
And where are the places where the most Americans lack access to broadband? Mostly rural areas. And so the co-chair of this new council is Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack.
This council will comprise 25 different agencies and departments of government that will look at strategies and processes that will allow us to complete the mission of expanded access to broadband in homes, businesses, and throughout the United States.
And there are many aspects to this. The council will deal with them all.
And the Opportunity Council will look at how we might better support access to broadband, what, if any, regulatory barriers exist to the deployment and or competitiveness of the marketplace, what tools do we currently have in the public sector, and are we using them most effectively? And based on what we know and what we find out from this Opportunity Council, what next steps we would suggest and propose to the President, the federal government, and the private sector to complete our task. We are required to report back to the President 150 days from today, and we will meet that deadline.
Vilsack will co-chair the council with Commerce Secretary Penny Pritzker. In Washington, Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Of course, this week's USDA Planting Intentions Report is certainly important and is a key indicator of what may happen this year. But Lance Honig with the USDA Statistics Service says you have to remember USDA began asking farmers for their planting intentions as early as the last couple of days of February. Now we're about to enter April, and in many areas, planting hasn't even begun yet.
These are intentions. Obviously the goal is to determine how many acres are going to be planted this year. But when you're still, in many cases, a good month away from even getting into the field, there's a lot of factors that can change between now and when those crops get into the ground. So we know from looking back over time that there are some changes that occur. And in fact, this very report can be one of the tools that producers use to change from what their intentions are to what they actually plant. And obviously what the market does is going to have a big impact on those decisions as well.
So don't set the numbers in Tuesday's report in stone. A lot may have already happened to change farmer intentions. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture has initiated a new program and funding to help those that are on the SNAP or Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program transition to self-sufficiency. Susan Carter with the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more.
Georgia is one of the states getting funds under the Supplemental Nutrition and Assistance Program, or SNAP, Skills Training Pilot.
They're going to receive $15 million from the federal government to essentially use this program for the next couple of years and have it evaluated. We're going to have it evaluated by a couple of good entities who are going to basically tell us whether or not this program, along with the 9 other programs that we're announcing today, will work.
Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack says the goal
to work with states to find the best practices possible to link the people who can work and want to work with the jobs that are available, providing them the skills, the education, the experience, the capacity to interview properly to make sure that they have that opportunity.
The downturn in the economy had Atlanta, Georgia resident Danina Battle faced with unemployment and getting nutritious food for her and her 3 children.
Well, what brought me out here today was to just say thank you for the opportunity to be able to partake of the SNAP program and being on food stamps when I needed it most.
Battle is among the successes.
It was a stepping stone for me, and it wasn't something that I wanted to stay on. I wanted to use it to help me in my process towards becoming self-sufficient, and it did just that.
Today, Battle works as the benefits manager at the Hosea Feed the Hungry and Homeless facility in Atlanta.
And now that I'm in a position to where I'm self-sufficient and do not need the food stamps, I can now say that it's been an awesome opportunity to be able to help people who were once in my position apply for food stamps and other state and federal benefits.
Battle talks about being able to encourage others in need.
Being able to be a motivator to people that come into my office who may need a little extra encouragement or motivation, and I can say, hey, I've been there, I've done that, I know how you feel, and it's genuine because I've been in that situation, so it's definitely a blessing to be able to give back.
Secretary Vilsack says helping people find and keep decent, well-paying jobs is the right way to transition recipients off of SNAP, ultimately reducing program costs. The 10 states where the pilot projects are taking place include Georgia, California, Delaware, Illinois, Kansas, Kentucky, Mississippi, Virginia, Vermont, and Washington State. For USDA Radio, Susan Carter, Washington, D.C.
The 2014 Farm Bill combined several USDA conservation easement programs into one main offering. And Tuesday, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack announced another round of funding for the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program.
The availability of $332 million in financial and technical assistance under the Agriculture Conservation Easement Program for 2015.
And while applications can be submitted to local NRCS offices for the current ACEP funding round, the deadline for landowners, tribes, and eligible parties to submit their applications is May 15th.
We have a variety of options under this program: permanent easements, 30-year easements, term easements, and 30-year contracts, all designed to provide protection and assistance to preserve precious land, to ensure that it provides us the opportunity to continue to have the agriculture that we enjoy in this country.
ACEP funding last fiscal year led to enrollment of an estimated 145,000 acres of easements into the program. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.